This is the story of Whiskers of Hope, follows Ethan and Luna, a rescued kitten with extraordinary empathy as they transform lives through therapy work. From a frail stray to a certified therapy cat, Luna brings joy to nursing homes and hospitals, proving that love and resilience can heal even the deepest wounds. Their bond inspires hope and second chances, showing that even the smallest beings can make a big difference. Welcome to Critter's Planet, where heartwarming tales of animals and their humans come to life. Join us as we celebrate the extraordinary bonds between pets and people, sharing stories of love, resilience, and second chances. Let's explore the magic of furry friends together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the quiet countryside. The air was warm, filled with the faint hum of cicadas and the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was the kind of summer afternoon that felt timeless, as if the world had paused to savor the beauty of the moment. But for one small creature, this peaceful scene was anything but serene. On the side of a dusty, unpaved road, a tiny kitten lay curled into a ball, her frail body trembling with every shallow breath. Her fur, once soft and white, was now matted with dirt and grime clinging to her bony frame. Her eyes, a striking shade of green, were clouded with exhaustion and fear. She let out a soft, pitiful meow, barely audible over the rustling of the nearby trees. It was a sound that spoke of hunger, of loneliness, of a desperate plea for help. Cars occasionally rumbled past, kicking up clouds of dust that settled over her like a shroud. Some drivers glanced her way, but none stopped. To them, she was just another stray, a nameless, faceless creature lost in the vastness of the world. She was too small, too weak, too insignificant to warrant their attention, and so she remained there, abandoned and forgotten, as the sun dipped lower in the sky. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Ethan Parker was driving home from work, his mind preoccupied with the usual worries of life, bills to pay, errands to run, and the endless to-do list that never seemed to shrink. He was a man of routine, his days predictable and uneventful. But as he rounded a bend in the road, something caught his eye. A small, motionless shape on the side of the road, barely visible in the fading light. At first, he thought it was a piece of trash, perhaps a discarded bag or a bundle of rags. But as he drew closer, he realized it was alive. His heart clenched as he pulled over, his tires crunching on the gravel. He stepped out of the car, the warm summer air wrapping around him like a blanket, and approached the tiny figure with cautious steps. The kitten stirred at the sound of his footsteps, her ears twitching weakly. She lifted her head, her green eyes meeting his for the briefest of moments, before she let out another soft meow, this one tinged with a faint glimmer of hope. Ethan knelt beside her, his breath catching in his throat. She was so small, so fragile, her ribs visible beneath her thin coat of fur. He could feel her trembling as he gently reached out to touch her. "Hey there, little one," he murmured, his voice soft and soothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The kitten didn't answer, of course, but she didn't pull away either. Instead, she leaned into his touch, as if sensing that he meant her no harm. Ethan's heart ached at the sight of her. He had always had a soft spot for animals, but this was different. This tiny creature, so vulnerable and alone, stirred something deep within him. He couldn't just leave her here. Carefully, he scooped her up, cradling her against his chest. She felt impossibly light, her body barely more than skin and bones. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and faint, against his palm. She let out another meow, this one softer, almost resigned, as if she had given up hope long ago. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, stroking her head with a gentle hand. "You're safe now, I've got you." He carried her to his car, laying her gently on the passenger seat. She curled into a ball, her eyes fluttering shut as if the simple act of being held had drained what little energy she had left. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. He wasn't sure what to do next, but he knew he couldn't just take her home without getting her checked out first. The nearest veterinarian's office was only a few miles away. Ethan drove as quickly as he dared, his eyes flicking to the kitten every few seconds to make sure she was still breathing. She lay motionless, her chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. He reached out to stroke her head, his fingers trembling slightly. "Hang in there, little one," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're almost there." The vet's office was a small, unassuming building, nestled between a grocery store and a gas station. Ethan parked hastily, barely remembering to turn off the engine before scooping the kitten into his arms and rushing inside. The receptionist looked up in surprise as he burst through the door, his face pale and his breathing ragged. "Please," he said, his voice cracking with urgency. "She needs help." The vet, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, took one look at the kitten and ushered them into an exam room. Ethan laid the kitten on the table, his hands shaking as he stepped back to give the vet space. She worked quickly, her movements precise and efficient as she examined the tiny creature. "She's severely malnourished," the vet said after a few moments, her tone grim. "Dehydrated too, and she's got a few cuts and scrapes. That could get infected if we're not careful." Ethan's heart sank. "Is she going to be okay?" The vet hesitated, her expression softening. "It's hard to say. She's in rough shape, and kittens this young are fragile. But she's a fighter, I can see that much. With the right care, she might pull through." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening with determination. "Whatever it takes, I'll do whatever it takes." The vet gave him a small, approving smile. "Good, let's get her started on some fluids and antibiotics. We'll keep her overnight for observation, but if she makes it through the night, her chances will improve." Ethan stayed by the kitten's side as the vet administered the treatment, his hand resting gently on her tiny body. She was so small, so fragile, but there was a spark of life in her that refused to be extinguished. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a connection to her, as if they were meant to find each other on that dusty road. As the vet finished up and left the room, Ethan leaned down, his face close to the kitten's. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you're not alone anymore." The kitten let out a soft meow, her eyes fluttering open for a brief moment before closing again. Ethan stayed with her until the vet gently reminded him that visiting hours were over. Reluctantly, he left, his heart heavy with worry, but also filled with a strange sense of hope. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the kitten. He didn't even know her name, but she had already carved out a place in his heart. He thought about her journey, the hardships she must have faced, and the resilience it took to survive. And he thought about the future, about the life they might build together. But for now, all he could do was wait and hope. The night was long and restless for Ethan. He tossed and turned, his mind consumed with thoughts of the tiny kitten he had left at the vet's office. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her fragile body trembling on the side of the road, her green eyes pleading for help. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was fighting for her life, and he wasn't there to comfort her. By the time the first rays of sunlight peeked through his bedroom window, Ethan was already wide awake. He dressed quickly, his movements hurried and anxious, and grabbed his car keys. The vet's office didn't open for another hour, but he couldn't wait. He needed to know if she had made it through the night. The drive felt endless, every red light and slow-moving car a test of his patience. When he finally pulled into the parking lot, the vet's office was still closed. He sat in his car, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lights inside flickered on and the receptionist unlocked the door. Ethan was out of the car before the door had fully opened. He rushed inside, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The receptionist looked up, startled by his sudden appearance. "Is she—" Ethan began, his voice cracking. "The kitten. Is she okay?" The receptionist smiled, her expression softening. "Let me check with the vet. Wait here." Ethan paced the small waiting room, his mind racing. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her, not after he had just found her. He had already named her in his mind, Luna, after the moon that had watched over her on that lonely road. It felt right, like she was meant to be a part of his life. Finally, the vet emerged from the back room, her face unreadable. Ethan's heart sank. He braced himself for the worst, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "She made it through the night," the vet said, her voice calm but kind. "She's still weak, but she's stable. Her body is responding to the fluids and antibiotics." "Ethan," let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. His knees felt weak and he leaned against the wall for support. "Can I see her?" The vet nodded. "Of course, but keep in mind, she's still very fragile. She needs rest and quiet." Ethan followed the vet into the back room, his heart pounding in his chest. Luna was lying in a small padded crate, a soft blanket tucked around her. She looked so small, so vulnerable, but there was a faint spark of life in her eyes that hadn't been there the day before. Her ears twitched as Ethan approached and she let out a soft, raspy meow. "Hey, Luna," Ethan whispered, crouching down beside the crate. "You're such a brave little girl. You're going to be okay." He reached out a hand, letting her sniff his fingers. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned into his touch, her tiny body trembling. Ethan's heart swelled with emotion. She trusted him, even after everything she had been through. The vet watched them for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "She's lucky you found her," she said. "Most people would have driven right by." Ethan shook his head. "I couldn't. Just leave her there. She deserves a chance." The vet smiled. "Well, she's got a good one with you, but it's going to be a long road. She'll need round-the-clock care for the next few weeks. Are you prepared for that?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes, whatever it takes." The vet nodded, satisfied. "Good. I'll give you some instructions and supplies to take home. But if anything changes, if she stops eating or seems to be in pain, you bring her back immediately." Ethan agreed, his eyes never leaving Luna. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a deep connection to her, as if they were meant to find each other. She was more than just a stray kitten. She was a symbol of hope, of resilience, of second chances. The next few days were a blur of feedings, medications, and sleepless nights. Ethan set up a cozy corner in his living room for Luna, complete with a soft bed, a heating pad, and a pile of toys he had picked up at the pet store. He followed the vet's instructions to the letter, carefully measuring out her food and water, and administering her medications with gentle hands. At first, Luna was hesitant. She would eat only a few bites at a time, and she spent most of her days curled up in her bed, too weak to move. But slowly, day by day, she began to improve. Her eyes grew brighter, her movements more confident. She started to explore her little corner of the world, batting at the toys Ethan had bought her, and purring softly when he stroked her fur. Ethan found himself looking forward to their quiet moments together. After a long day at work, he would sit on the floor beside her bed, talking to her in a soft, soothing voice. She would curl up in his lap, her tiny body warm and comforting, and he would feel the stress of the day melt away. One evening, as the sun set and the room was bathed in a warm golden light, Luna did something that took Ethan's breath away. She climbed out of her bed and walked over to him, her steps still a little unsteady but full of determination. She looked up at him with those bright green eyes and let out a soft, melodic meow. Ethan's heart swelled with pride. "Look at you," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "You're getting stronger every day." Luna purred, rubbing her head against his hand. In that moment, Ethan knew that she was going to be okay. She had fought so hard to survive, and now she was thriving. She was more than just a kitten, she was a miracle. The days turned into weeks, and Luna's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. What had once been a frail, trembling kitten was now a lively, curious little cat with a spark of mischief in her eyes. Her fur, once matted and dull, had grown soft and glossy, a pristine white that shimmered in the sunlight. Her green eyes, once clouded with exhaustion, now gleamed with intelligence and curiosity. She was still small for her age, but her spirit was indomitable. Ethan's apartment, once a quiet and solitary space, had become a haven of warmth and life. Luna's presence filled every corner, from the soft purring that greeted him in the mornings to the playful pounces that kept him on his toes in the evenings. She had a way of making even the most mundane moments feel special, whether it was chasing a ball of yarn across the floor or curling up in his lap as he read a book. But caring for Luna wasn't without its challenges. Her recovery was a slow and delicate process, and there were days when Ethan worried that he wasn't doing enough. She still had moments of weakness, times when she would retreat to her bed and refuse to eat. On those days, Ethan would sit beside her, stroking her fur and whispering words of encouragement until she felt strong enough to try again. One such day stood out in Ethan's memory. It had been a particularly rough morning. Luna had barely touched her breakfast, and she seemed listless and uninterested in her usual toys. Ethan's heart ached as he watched her, his mind racing with worry. He had grown so attached to her, so invested in her well-being, that the thought of losing her was unbearable. He decided to try something different. He remembered the vet mentioning that Luna might enjoy a bit of variety in her diet, so he made a quick trip to the store and returned with a small container of fresh chicken. He cooked it carefully, shredding it into tiny pieces and setting it on a plate. Then he carried it over to Luna, holding his breath as he placed it in front of her. At first, she didn't move. She just stared at the plate, her nose twitching slightly. But then slowly she leaned forward and took a tentative bite. Her ears perked up, and she took another bite, then another. Before long, she was eating with gusto, her tail flicking. Happily as she devoured the meal, Ethan felt a surge of relief and pride. "That's my girl," he said, his voice filled with affection. "You're going to be just fine." As Luna continued to heal, Ethan began to notice something remarkable about her. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. She had a natural curiosity and intelligence that set her apart from other cats. She seemed to understand him in a way that was almost uncanny, as if she could sense his moods and respond to them. When he was stressed, she would curl up in his lap and purr softly, her presence a soothing balm. When he was happy, she would play with him, her antics bringing a smile to his face. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed since he found Luna. He had always been a quiet, reserved person, content to keep to himself. But Luna had brought a new sense of purpose and joy into his life. She had taught him the value of patience, of compassion, of unconditional love. "You've come so far, little one," he said, stroking her head. "I'm so proud of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with trust and affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "I'm proud of you too." As Luna continued to grow stronger, her personality began to shine through in ways that both delighted and amused Ethan. She was no longer the timid, fragile kitten he had found on the side of the road. Now she was a bundle of energy and curiosity, her bright green eyes always scanning her surroundings for something new to explore. Ethan's apartment, once a quiet and orderly space, had become a playground for Luna. She discovered the joy of climbing, scaling bookshelves, and leaping onto countertops with the grace of a seasoned acrobat. She had a particular fondness for high places, often perching on top of the refrigerator or the highest shelf in the living room, surveying her domain like a tiny queen. Her curiosity extended to every corner of the apartment. She would paw at the curtains, bat at the strings of the blinds, and investigate every nook and cranny. Ethan quickly learned to keep his belongings out of reach, as Luna had a knack for knocking things over or swatting them off tables just to see what would happen. One evening, as Ethan was preparing dinner, Luna decided to help. She hopped onto the kitchen counter, her tail swishing as she watched him chop vegetables. Ethan chuckled and gently shooed her down, but she was undeterred. She returned moments later, this time with a small toy mouse in her mouth, which she dropped at his feet as if offering her assistance. "Thanks, Luna," Ethan said with a grin, picking up the toy and tossing it across the room. She darted after it, her movements quick and precise before returning to his side, with the mouse clutched triumphantly in her mouth. But it wasn't just her playful antics that caught Ethan's attention. He began to notice something remarkable about Luna, her keen instincts and intelligence. She seemed to understand him in a way that went beyond the typical bond between a person and their pet. When he misplaced his keys or phone, she would often lead him to the missing item, her nose twitching as she sniffed it out. When he was feeling down, she would curl up in his lap and purr softly, her presence a comforting reminder that he wasn't alone. One afternoon, as Ethan was working on his laptop, Luna jumped onto the desk and sat directly in front of the screen, her tail swishing back and forth. Ethan laughed and gently moved her to the side, but she returned moments later, this time batting at the cursor as it moved across the screen. "You're quite the little helper, aren't you?" Ethan said, scratching her behind the ears. She purred in response, her eyes half closed in contentment. As the days went by, Ethan began to wonder if there was more to Luna's intelligence than he had initially realized. She seemed to have an almost uncanny ability to sense his moods and respond to them. When he was stressed, she would nudge his hand with her head, as if to remind him to take a break. When he was happy, she would play with him, her antics bringing a smile to his face. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan found himself reflecting on how much Luna had changed his life. She had brought a sense of joy and purpose that he hadn't realized was missing. She had taught him the value of patience, of compassion, of unconditional love. "You're not just a cat, are you, Luna?" he said, stroking her head. "You're something special." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with trust and affection. She let out a soft meow, as if to say, "I know." Ethan's curiosity about Luna's unique abilities grew with each passing day. She wasn't just a playful and affectionate companion. There was something extraordinary about her. Her intelligence, her instincts, and her uncanny ability to sense his emotions set her apart from any other cat he had ever known. He began to wonder if there was a way to channel her remarkable qualities into something meaningful. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Ethan stumbled upon a video about therapy animals. The video featured a cat named Whiskers, who visited hospitals and nursing homes, bringing comfort to patients with her calm and gentle presence. Ethan watched in awe as the cat nuzzled against an elderly woman's hand, eliciting a smile that seemed to light up the room. The woman's eyes, once dull and distant, sparkled with joy as she petted the cat. Ethan's heart raced as an idea began to form in his mind. Could Luna do something like that? Could her unique abilities bring comfort and joy to others the way she had brought it to him? He glanced over at Luna, who was curled up on the couch beside him, her tail flicking lazily as she dozed. She looked Ethan's decision to explore therapy work for Luna marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. He was determined to give her the best chance to succeed, but he also knew it would require patience, dedication, and a lot of hard work. The first step was to find a reputable therapy animal training program that could help Luna develop the skills she needed. After days of research, Ethan found a local organization called Paws for Comfort, which specialized in training and certifying therapy animals. The program had a strong reputation, and their trainers were known for their expertise and compassion. Ethan filled out an application, and to his delight received a response within a few days, inviting him and Luna to an orientation session. The morning of the orientation, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nerves. He wanted this so badly for Luna, but he also worried about how she would handle the new environment. Luna, on the other hand, seemed completely unfazed. She sat calmly in her carrier, her green eyes peering out curiously as Ethan drove to the training center. When they arrived, Ethan was greeted by a friendly woman named Maggie, the head trainer at Paws for Comfort. She had a warm smile and a gentle demeanor that immediately put Ethan at ease. "You must be Ethan," Maggie said, extending her hand. "And this must be Luna. She's adorable." Ethan smiled, lifting Luna out of her carrier. "Thanks. We're both really excited to be here." Maggie led them into a spacious room filled with other animals and their handlers. There were dogs of all shapes and sizes, a few rabbits, and even a parrot. Luna's ears perked up as she took in the new sights and sounds, but she remained calm, her tail swishing lazily. The orientation began with an overview of the program. Maggie explained that therapy animals needed to be calm, well-behaved, and adaptable to different environments. They would be trained to interact with people of all ages, from children to the elderly, and to remain composed in potentially stressful situations. "Therapy work isn't for every animal," Maggie said, her tone serious but kind. "It requires a special temperament and a strong bond between the animal and their handler. But for those who are suited to it, the impact they can have is truly remarkable." Ethan glanced down at Luna, who was sitting quietly at his feet, her eyes fixed on Maggie. She seemed to be listening intently, as if she understood the importance of the moment. After the orientation, Maggie invited Ethan and Luna to participate in a basic temperament test. The test was designed to assess Luna's reactions to different stimuli, such as loud noises, unfamiliar objects, and sudden movements. Ethan held his breath as Maggie introduced Luna to a series of challenges. First, Maggie dropped a metal bowl on the floor, creating a loud clanging sound. Luna flinched slightly but didn't run or hide. Instead, she tilted her head, her ears twitching as she investigated the source of the noise. Next, Maggie brought out a large, inflatable ball and rolled it toward Luna. Luna watched the ball with curiosity, then pounced on it, batting it with her paws. She seemed more intrigued than frightened, her playful nature shining through. Finally, Maggie introduced Luna to a stranger, a volunteer who pretended to be a patient in a hospital bed. The volunteer reached out to pet Luna, and to Ethan's relief, Luna responded with calm affection. She purred softly and nuzzled against the volunteer's hand, her tail flicking contentedly. Maggie smiled as she observed Luna's reactions. "She's got a wonderful temperament," she said. "Calm, curious, and very social. I think she has the potential to be an excellent therapy cat." Ethan felt a surge of pride and relief. "That's great to hear. What's the next step?" Maggie explained that Luna would need to complete a series of training sessions to prepare for her certification test. The sessions would focus on obedience, socialization, and specific skills needed for therapy work, such as remaining calm in crowded or noisy environments. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Luna attended training sessions twice a week. The sessions were challenging but rewarding. Luna learned to walk on a leash, to sit and stay on command, and to remain calm in the presence of unfamiliar people and animals. Ethan, in turn, learned how to read Luna's body language and respond to her needs. One of the most important lessons Ethan learned was the importance of patience. Luna was a quick learner, but there were moments when she became distracted or overwhelmed. On those days, Ethan would take a step back, giving her time to relax and regroup before trying again. Despite the challenges, Luna's progress was remarkable. She seemed to thrive in the training environment, her confidence growing with each session. Ethan could see the potential in her, the spark of something extraordinary that had drawn him to her in the first place. One evening, after a particularly successful training session, Ethan sat on the couch with Luna curled up in his lap. He stroked her fur, his mind filled with thoughts of the future. "You're doing so well, Luna," he said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with trust and affection. She let out a soft meow, as if to say, "I'm proud of you too." As the weeks went by, Ethan and Luna continued to make progress in their training. Luna's confidence grew with each session, and Ethan could see her transforming into a calm, composed, and empathetic companion. But despite their successes, doubts began to creep into Ethan's mind. Was Luna truly ready for the challenges of therapy work? Could she handle the pressure of visiting hospitals and nursing homes, where the environments were often unpredictable and overwhelming? These doubts came to a head one evening after a particularly difficult training session. Luna had been introduced to a simulated hospital environment, complete with beeping machines, rolling gurneys, and a group of volunteers pretending to be patients. At first, Luna had handled the situation well, walking calmly on her leash and allowing strangers to pet her. But when a loud alarm sounded unexpectedly, she had bolted, hiding under a chair and refusing to come out. Ethan had managed to coax her out eventually, but the incident left him shaken. He couldn't stop replaying the moment in his mind, wondering if he had pushed her too hard. That night, as he sat on the couch with Luna curled up beside him, he found himself questioning everything. "Maybe this is too much for you," he said softly, stroking her fur. "Maybe I'm asking too much." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes filled with trust. She let out a soft meow as if to reassure him, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was failing her. The next day, Ethan decided to talk to Maggie about his concerns. He arrived at the training center early, his stomach in knots as he waited for her to finish with another handler. When she finally approached him, her warm smile immediately put him at ease. "Ethan, how are you?" Maggie asked, her tone kind and encouraging. Ethan hesitated, then sighed. I'm worried about Luna. She's doing so well most of the time, but yesterday she got scared and I don't know if she's ready for this. Maggie nodded thoughtfully. It's normal to have doubts, Ethan. Therapy work is challenging and it's not for every animal, but from what I've seen, Luna has the potential to be great at this. She just needs time and patience. But what if I'm pushing her too hard? Ethan asked, his voice tinged with frustration. I don't want to hurt her or make her anxious. Maggie placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. The fact that you're worried about her well-being tells me you're a great handler. Therapy work is a partnership, and it's important to listen to your animal. If Luna seems stressed, it's okay to take a step back. But don't give up on her just yet. She's stronger than you think. Ethan took a deep breath, letting Maggie's words sink in. She was right. Luna had come so far, and he owed it to her to keep going. But he also knew he needed to adjust his approach, to be more attuned to her needs and limits. Over the next few weeks, Ethan focused on building Luna's confidence in smaller, more controlled environments. He took her to quiet parks, where she could encounter new sights and sounds without feeling overwhelmed. He introduced her to friends and family members, one at a time, so she could practice interacting with different people in a calm setting. Also worked on strengthening their bond, spending extra time playing with her, and rewarding her with treats and affection. Luna responded beautifully, her trust in Ethan growing with each passing day. She began to look to him for guidance, her green eyes seeking his reassurance whenever she felt unsure. One afternoon, Ethan decided to revisit the simulated hospital environment. This time, he took things slowly, introducing Luna to one element at a time. He started with the beeping machines, letting her sniff and investigate them before turning them on at a low volume. Then he introduced the rolling gurneys, allowing her to watch from a distance before moving closer. To his relief, Luna handled the situation much better this time. She remained calm and focused, her tail swishing lazily as she explored the new environment. When the loud alarm sounded, she flinched but didn't bolt. Instead, she looked up at Ethan, her eyes seeking his reassurance. It's okay, Luna, Ethan said softly, crouching down to stroke her head. You're safe, Luna purred, leaning into his touch, and Ethan felt a surge of pride. She was learning to trust not just him, but also herself. As the weeks went by, Luna's progress continued to impress everyone at the training center. Maggie often commented on how far she had come, praising Ethan for his patience and dedication. But Ethan knew the real credit belonged to Luna. She was the one who had overcome her fears, who had shown him the true meaning of resilience. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan reflected on their journey. Luna had come so far, from a frail, abandoned kitten to a confident, compassionate companion. She had taught him so much about patience, about trust, about the power of second chances. You're amazing, Luna, Ethan said, scratching her behind the ears. I'm so proud of you. Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, I'm proud of you too. The day of Luna's certification test arrived, and Ethan woke up with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, the moment they had been working toward for months. Luna's training had been rigorous and she had come so far, but the test would push her to her limits. Ethan couldn't help but worry. What if she got scared? What if she froze under pressure? What if all their hard work wasn't enough? He tried to push those thoughts aside as he prepared for the day. Luna, on the other hand, seemed completely unfazed. She sat on the kitchen counter, watching him with her bright green eyes as he packed her favorite treats and toys into a bag. Her tail swished lazily, and she let out a soft meow as if to remind him that she was ready. Okay, Luna, Ethan said, scratching her behind the ears. Today's the big day. Let's show them what you're made of. The test was held at the training center, which had been transformed into a series of challenging scenarios designed to mimic real-life therapy situations. Maggie greeted Ethan and Luna at the door, her warm smile helping to ease some of Ethan's anxiety. You've both worked so hard for this, Maggie said. Just remember to take it one step at a time. Luna's got this. Ethan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He followed Maggie into the main room, where a panel of evaluators sat at a table, their expressions neutral but kind. Luna trotted, Beside him, her leash slack in his hand, her head held high. The first part of the test was a basic obedience assessment. Luna was asked to perform a series of commands, such as sitting, staying, and walking on a leash without pulling. She executed each one flawlessly, her movements precise and confident. Ethan felt a surge of pride as he watched her, his nerves slowly giving way to hope. Next came the socialization portion of the test. A group of volunteers, ranging from children to elderly adults, approached Luna one by one. Each person interacted with her in a different way. Some petted her gently, while others spoke to her in loud or excited voices. Luna remained calm and composed throughout, her tail swishing lazily as she accepted their affection. But the real challenge came during the simulated hospital environment. The room was set up to look like a hospital ward, complete with beeping machines, rolling gurneys, and a loud intercom system. Ethan's heart raced as they entered the room, but Luna seemed unfazed. She walked calmly on her leash, her ears twitching as she took in the new sights and sounds. The evaluators watched closely as Ethan and Luna navigated the room. They observed how Luna reacted to the beeping machines, the sudden movements of the gurneys, and the loud announcements over the intercom. To Ethan's relief, Luna remained calm and focused, her green eyes scanning the room with curiosity, but no fear. Then came the moment Ethan had been dreading. One of the evaluators triggered a loud alarm, the sound echoing through the room. Luna flinched, her ears flattening against her head, but she didn't bolt or hide. Instead, she looked up at Ethan, her eyes seeking his reassurance. "It's okay, Luna," Ethan said softly, crouching down to stroke her head. "You're safe," Luna purred, leaning into his touch, and the evaluators exchanged impressed glances. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about the bond between Ethan and Luna, a bond built on trust, patience, and unconditional love. The final part of the test was a mock therapy session. Luna was introduced to a volunteer pretending to be a patient in a hospital bed. The volunteer was instructed to act withdrawn and unresponsive, a common challenge for therapy animals. Ethan held his breath as Luna approached the bed, her tail held high. At first, the volunteer ignored Luna, staring blankly at the ceiling. But Luna didn't give up. She jumped onto the bed, her movements gentle and deliberate, and nuzzled against the volunteer's hand. The volunteer's expression softened, and a small smile crept onto their face as they began to pet Luna. Ethan felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes as he watched the interaction. Luna had done it. She had broken through the volunteer's defenses, bringing a moment of comfort and connection. It was exactly what therapy work was all about. When the test was over, Ethan and Luna were asked to wait in the hallway while the evaluators deliberated. The minutes felt like hours as Ethan paced back and forth, his heart pounding in his chest. Luna sat calmly at his feet, her green eyes watching him with quiet confidence. Finally, Maggie emerged from the room, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Ethan," she said, her voice filled with warmth, "I'm happy to tell you that Luna has passed her certification test with flying colors." Ethan felt a wave of relief and joy wash over him. He knelt down and scooped Luna into his arms, burying his face in her soft fur. "You did it, Luna," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You're a therapy cat." Luna purred loudly, her tail swishing happily as if she understood the significance of the moment. Ethan looked up at Maggie, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." Maggie smiled. "The credit belongs to you and Luna. You've both worked so hard for this, I can't wait to see the impact she'll have." As Ethan left the training center that day, his heart was full. Luna had come so far, from a frail, abandoned kitten to a certified therapy cat. She had overcome her fears, her doubts, and her challenges, proving that with love and patience, anything was possible. With Luna's certification as a therapy cat secured, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. Now, it was time to put their training to the test and begin making a difference in the lives of others. Their first assignment was at a local nursing home, Sunset Gardens, a place where many residents lived with loneliness and isolation. Ethan had heard stories about the profound impact therapy animals could have in such settings, but he was still nervous. Would Luna be able to handle the new environment? Would the residents respond to her? As they walked through the doors of Sunset Gardens, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Luna, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. She trotted beside him on her leash, her tail held high and her green eyes scanning the room with curiosity. They were greeted by Mrs. Thompson, the activities coordinator, who had a warm smile and a kind demeanor. "Welcome, Ethan and Luna," she said, crouching down to greet the cat. "We're so excited to have you here." Luna sniffed Mrs. Thompson's hand, then nuzzled against it, eliciting a delighted laugh. "Oh, she's wonderful," Mrs. Thompson said, standing up. "Let's get started, shall we?" Their first stop was the common room, where a group of residents had gathered for the visit. Ethan could see the anticipation on their faces as he and Luna entered the room. Some of the residents leaned forward in their chairs, their eyes lighting up at the sight of the small white cat. Ethan began by introducing Luna, sharing her story and explaining how she had become a therapy cat. The residents listened intently, their faces softening as they learned about Luna's journey from a frail, abandoned kitten to a confident and compassionate companion. Then it was time for Luna to work her magic. Ethan set her down on the floor, and she immediately began to explore the room, her movements calm and deliberate. She approached each resident one by one, her tail swishing lazily as she sniffed their hands and allowed them to pet her. One resident, an elderly woman named Edith, had been sitting quietly in the corner, her hands folded in her lap. She hadn't spoken much since arriving at Sunset Gardens, and the staff had told Ethan that she often seemed withdrawn. But as Luna approached her, something remarkable happened. Edith's eyes widened as Luna jumped onto her lap, her movements gentle and deliberate. The woman hesitated for a moment, then reached out to stroke Luna's soft fur. A smile spread across her face, the first genuine smile Ethan had seen from her. "Oh, you're such a sweet girl," Edith murmured, her voice trembling with emotion. "You remind me of a cat I had when I was young. Her name was Snowball." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as he watched the interaction. Luna had done it again. She had brought a moment of joy and connection to someone who needed it most. The rest of the visit was filled with similar moments. Luna curled up in the laps of residents, purring softly as they petted her. She played gently with a ball of yarn, eliciting laughter from a group of women who hadn't smiled in weeks. She even sat quietly beside a man who had been agitated, her calm presence helping to soothe his nerves. By the time the visit was over, Ethan was overwhelmed with pride. Luna had exceeded all his expectations, proving that she was not just a therapy cat, but a true healer. The residents of Sunset Gardens were equally smitten, their faces glowing with happiness as they thanked Ethan and Luna for the visit. "You'll come back, won't you?" Edith asked as they prepared to leave. Her eyes were filled with hope, and Ethan felt a surge of emotion. "Of course," he said, smiling. "We'll be back next week." As they walked out of Sunset Gardens, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Luna had touched the lives of so many people in just one visit, and he knew this was only the beginning. Their work as a therapy team was just getting started, and the possibilities were endless. That evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan reflected on their journey. Luna had come so far, from a scared, abandoned kitten to a confident and compassionate therapy cat. She had taught him so much, about resilience, about trust, about the power of unconditional love. "You're amazing, Luna," Ethan said, scratching her behind the ears. "I'm so proud of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "I'm proud of you too." Ethan and Luna's visits to Sunset Gardens became a regular part of their routine. Each week, they brought joy and comfort to the residents, their bond growing stronger with every interaction. Luna's calm and gentle presence had a profound impact, and Ethan often found himself marveling at her ability to connect with people in ways he never could have imagined. But as their work continued, Ethan began to notice something troubling. Luna, who had always been so full of energy and curiosity, seemed to be growing quieter. She still performed her duties with the same grace and compassion, but there were moments when she seemed tired, her movements slower, and her purrs softer. First, Ethan brushed it off, thinking she was just adjusting to the demands of therapy work. But as the weeks went by, his concern grew. One evening, after a particularly long day at Sunset Gardens, Luna curled up in her bed and didn't move for hours. Ethan sat beside her, stroking her fur and whispering words of reassurance, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next morning, Ethan decided to take Luna to the vet. He tried to stay calm as he explained his concerns, but his voice trembled with worry. The vet, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, listened carefully before conducting a thorough examination. "She's not showing any obvious signs of illness," Dr. Patel said after finishing the exam, "but therapy work can be physically and emotionally draining, especially for a cat. She might just need a break." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He had been so focused on their work that he hadn't considered the toll it might be taking on Luna. He felt a pang of guilt as he looked down at her. Her green eyes filled with trust. "What should I do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Patel smiled gently. "Give her some time to rest. Reduce her workload for a while and see how she responds. Therapy animals are incredible, but they're not invincible. They need downtime, just like we do." Ethan took Dr. Patel's advice to heart. He cancelled their upcoming visits and focused on giving Luna the rest she needed. He spent extra time playing with her, taking her on quiet walks, and simply enjoying their time together. Slowly but surely, Luna began to regain her energy, her playful spirit returning in small but noticeable ways. One afternoon, as they sat together on the porch, Ethan reflected on their journey. Luna had given so much to others, but he realized he needed to give back to her. She wasn't just a therapy cat. She was his companion, his friend, and she deserved to be cared for in return. "I'm sorry, Luna," he said softly, stroking her fur. "I should have realized sooner that you needed a break, but I'm here now and I'm going to take care of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "I know you will." As the days turned into weeks, Ethan and Luna found a new rhythm. They continued their therapy work, but Ethan made sure to balance it with plenty of rest and relaxation. He also began to pay closer attention to Luna's needs, learning to recognize when she was feeling overwhelmed and adjusting their schedule accordingly. Their bond grew even stronger, their trust in each other deepening with every passing day. Ethan realized that their journey wasn't just about helping others. It was about learning and growing together. Luna had taught him so much, about patience, about compassion, about the importance of taking care of oneself. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. Luna curled up in his lap, her purring a soft, steady rhythm that filled the quiet space. He stroked her fur, his heart swelling with gratitude. "You're amazing, Luna," he said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with trust and affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "I'm proud of you too." As the weeks passed, Ethan and Luna settled into a new rhythm. Their therapy visits continued, but Ethan made sure to prioritize Luna's well-being, balancing their work with plenty of rest and relaxation. Luna's energy returned, and with it, her playful spirit and boundless curiosity. She was once again the vibrant, confident cat Ethan had come to know and love. Their bond deepened with each passing day, their trust in each other unshakable. Ethan had learned to read Luna's subtle cues, recognizing when she needed a break or when she was ready to take on a new challenge. In turn, Luna seemed to understand Ethan's moods, offering comfort when he was stressed and companionship when he felt lonely. One crisp autumn morning, Ethan received a call from Maggie at Pause for Comfort. Her voice was filled with excitement as she shared some news. "Ethan, I have a special opportunity for you and Luna," Maggie said. "There's a children's hospital in the city that's looking for therapy animals to visit their patients. It's a big step, but I think you two would be perfect for it." Ethan's heart raced at the thought. A children's hospital, it was a chance to make an even greater impact, to bring joy to kids who were facing unimaginable challenges. But it was also a big responsibility, and he couldn't help but feel a twinge of nervousness. "I'll talk to Luna about it," Ethan said with a smile, glancing down at the cat, who was curled up on the couch beside him. "But I think she's up for it." The following week, Ethan and Luna arrived at the children's hospital, their first visit filled with anticipation and hope. The hospital was a bustling place, filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the occasional beep of medical equipment. Ethan could feel the weight of the moment as they walked through the doors, but Luna seemed completely at ease, her tail held high, and her green eyes scanning the room with curiosity. They were greeted by Dr. Martinez, a kind and energetic pediatrician, who had organized the therapy animal program. "Welcome, Ethan and Luna," she said, crouching down to greet the cat. "We're so excited to have you here. The kids are going to love you." Luna sniffed Dr. Martinez's hand, then nuzzled against it, eliciting a delighted laugh. "Oh, she's wonderful," Dr. Martinez said, standing up. "Let's get started, shall we?" Their first stop was a playroom filled with children of all ages. Some were sitting in wheelchairs, others were hooked up to IVs, but all of them lit up at the sight of Luna. Ethan began by introducing her, sharing her story. The children listened intently, their faces softening as they learned about Luna's journey from a frail, abandoned kitten to a confident and compassionate companion. Then it was time for Luna to work her magic. Ethan set her down on the floor, and she immediately began to explore the room, her movements calm and deliberate. She approached each child one by one, her tail swishing lazily as she sniffed their hands and allowed them to pet her. One little girl, Sophie, had been sitting quietly in the corner, her arms wrapped around a stuffed bear. She had been in the hospital for weeks, undergoing treatment for a serious illness, and the staff had told Ethan that she rarely smiled or spoke. But as Luna approached her, something remarkable happened. Sophie's eyes widened as Luna jumped onto her lap, her movements gentle and deliberate. The girl hesitated for a moment, then reached out to stroke Luna's soft fur. A smile spread across her face, the first genuine smile Ethan had seen from her. "She's so soft," Sophie whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've never had a cat before." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as he watched the interaction. Luna had done it again. She had brought a moment of joy and connection to someone who needed it most. The rest of the visit was filled with similar moments. Luna curled up in the laps of children, purring softly as they petted her. She played gently with a ball of yarn, eliciting laughter from a group of kids who hadn't smiled in weeks. She even sat quietly beside a boy who had been agitated, her calm presence helping to soothe his nerves. By the time the visit was over, Ethan was overwhelmed with pride. Luna had exceeded all his expectations, proving that she was not just a therapy cat but a true healer. The children and staff at the hospital were equally smitten, their faces glowing with happiness as they thanked Ethan and Luna for the visit. "You'll come back, won't you?" Sophie asked as they prepared to leave. Her eyes were filled with hope, and Ethan felt a surge of emotion. "Of course," he said, smiling. "We'll be back next week." As they walked out of the hospital, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Luna had touched the lives of so many people in just one visit, and he knew this was only the beginning. Their work as a therapy team was just getting started, and the possibilities were endless. That evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan reflected on their journey. Luna had come so far from a scared, abandoned kitten to a confident and compassionate therapy cat. She had taught him so much about resilience, about trust, about the power of unconditional love. "You're amazing, Luna," Ethan said, scratching her behind the ears. "I'm so proud of you." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "I'm proud of you too." Ethan and Luna's visits to the children's hospital became a cherished tradition. Week after week, they brought joy, comfort, and a sense of normalcy to the young patients who were facing some of life's toughest challenges. Luna's gentle presence and intuitive nature made her a favorite among the children, and Ethan often found himself moved to tears by the profound impact she had on their lives. One particular visit stood out in Ethan's memory. They were in the oncology ward, where the atmosphere was often heavy with the weight of illness and uncertainty. Luna, as always, seemed to sense the need for extra care. She moved slowly and deliberately, her green eyes filled with compassion. As she approached each child, one boy, Liam, had been particularly withdrawn. He was undergoing intense treatment for leukemia, and the staff had told Ethan that he rarely spoke or smiled. But as Luna approached his bed, something extraordinary happened. Liam's eyes widened as Luna jumped onto his lap, her movements gentle and deliberate. The boy hesitated for a moment, then reached out to stroke Luna's soft fur. A smile spread across his face, the first genuine smile Ethan had seen from him. "She's so soft," Liam whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "I've never had a cat before." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as he watched the interaction. Luna had done it again. She had brought a moment of joy and connection to someone who needed it most. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan and Luna's bond grew even stronger. They became a symbol of hope and resilience, not just for the children at the hospital, but for everyone who heard their story. News of their work spread, and they were invited to share their journey at community events, schools, and even on local television. One evening after a particularly inspiring event, Ethan sat on the couch with Luna curled up in his lap. He stroked her fur, his mind filled with thoughts of the future. They had come so far, from a chance encounter on a dusty road, to becoming a beacon of hope for so many people. "You've changed so many lives, Luna," Ethan said softly, "including mine." Luna looked up at him, her green eyes shining with trust and affection. She let out a soft meow as if to say, "You've changed mine too." As the first stars appeared in the sky, Ethan felt a deep sense of peace. Their journey wasn't just about the work they did. It was about the lives they touched, the hope they brought, and the unbreakable bond they shared. Luna had shown the world, and Ethan himself, that the greatest strength comes from the heart. In that quiet moment, Ethan realized that their legacy would live on, inspiring others to see the beauty and potential in the overlooked and the forgotten. Their journey was far from over, but for now they had everything they needed: each other.